Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Well folks, as we called it, Jussie Smollett is finished. What is it with these leftist lawyers that just makes them such ridiculous characters? Of course, we covered Binger and Bergerman during the whole Kyle Rittenhouse prosecution fail. Like I said in the last video covering Jussie Smollett, those guys were bad, but they weren't necessarily working with much. Jussie Smollett's lawyer isn't working with much, but is on a whole other level when it comes to being just a completely ridiculous character. On the first video, we covered how Jussie Smollett's defense, at least in the opening statements, was that actually Jussie Smollett himself was the victim and the Osundaro brothers had roped him into a scheme to somehow try to set him up and get themselves in legal trouble as well, despite the fact that there is literally mounting evidence that essentially suggests that Jussie Smollett himself is the one who orchestrated everything and paid the Osundaro brothers to essentially do his bidding. Not to mention, it just came out recently that he actually asked someone else, another individual, before contacting the Osundaro brothers to, quote, fake beat him up. If the Osundaro brothers were trying to rope him into a scheme, and why is it that he recruited the Osundaro brothers if they were trying to rope him into a scheme? The whole thing, of course, just doesn't make sense. And clearly, Jussie Smollett and his defense team know things are not going too well. They're absolutely ridiculing themselves, looking like complete fools on this one. And so Smollett's lawyer is resorting to some seriously desperate stuff here. I mean, so desperate, it's almost unbelievable how ridiculous it is. Out of nowhere, Smollett's defense team is claiming that the judge presiding the case lunged at her, tried to physically attack her, and they are now calling for a mistrial. This is one of the most ridiculous cons I have ever seen in my life, but it's not exactly surprising coming from clear left-wing activists posing as serious lawyers. The whole fabrication of events in order to make yourself look like a victim is probably exactly what you'd expect from these left-wing hacks. I mean, just think about it. Jussie Smollett faked being a victim, faked as if he was attacked, is now in court because of that, trying to fraud the American people. And now his lawyer is trying to call a mistrial by essentially doing the same thing. Pretty soon we're going to be hearing that the judge himself is racist, was wearing a MAGA hat, yelled "This is MAGA country" before he jumped out of his seat and lunged at Jussie Smollett's defense team. And so this whole trial, this whole case is becoming the biggest laughingstock I've ever seen, and is probably going to lead to some very swift justice of Jussie Smollett, hopefully being put behind bars quite swiftly. But I'm realizing now that this intro is taking way too long, so let's get into all of the juicy details. But of course, before we get into any of it, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. We are still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm, hidden from non-subscribed viewers. And with that out of the way, let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so just take a look at this. Jussie Smollett's lawyer calls for mistrial, claims judge lunged at her. Tamara Walker, a lawyer of Jussie Smollett's defense team, is calling for a mistrial, claiming the presiding judge lunged at her in court. The alleged lunge occurred amid the defense's cross-examination of Olabinyo Osundaro, who claimed he was paid to help Smollett stage the hate crime. Walker grilled him about his alleged homophobia and past derogatory remarks towards suspected gay men. Osundaro, who's 30 years old, had just acknowledged that he used the word fruity to refer to a man that he suspected was part of the rainbow community, and Walker asked if Smollett, who is openly part of this rainbow community, knew that he had said such things in the past, according to the Post. I mean, some serious cross-examination here, folks. Clearly not a stretch at all. Of course, just continues to add to how ridiculous this whole thing is. Chicago Tribune Criminal Court's reporter Megan Crapo outlined the timeline of the events on Twitter. Take a look at this. Judge Lynn tries to hustle things along, saying Walker is getting into something collateral. She asks for a sidebar. The jury is sent out of the room, and she asks for a mistrial, in part because of the collateral comment. The lawyer is literally fishing for a mistrial, knowing things are going so horrendous for her and her team. The judge merely claiming that the line of her questioning is getting into collateral is not grounds for a mistrial, yet she tries anyway. Walker is also saying that Lynn lunged at her during a sidebar. "You did physically lunge at me." Lynn, the judge, seems furious and is denying it outright. Then Fox News correspondent Matt Finn clarifies by saying judge denies motion, says some questions to Osundaro were collateral, did not involve Smollett, and also told one Smollett attorney that she's good at facial expressions, which of course must mean that she's an SJW lawyer, using all kinds of facial expressions and attitude in the courtroom as expected. Matt Finn then continues saying right now court is paused. Smollett attorney asked to compose herself. She claims the judge lunged at her. The judge says he stood up. So let me get this straight. Things are going so bad for Jussie Smollett and his legal team that during the cross-examination, Mrs. Walker goes into something that has absolutely nothing to do with Smollett trying to make a link to some homophobic connection, as if the Osundaro brothers wanted to set up Jussie Smollett because of some, I guess, animus towards rainbow people. The judge then says you're going into collateral, saying that has absolutely nothing to do with Jussie. She then calls for a mistrial. The judge gets frustrated with her, denies her motion for mistrial, stands up, and then Jussie Smollett's lawyer claims that he physically lunged at her and then tries to call for another mistrial based on that absolutely fraudulent claim. Folks, this is Jussie Smollett's lawyer, Tamara Walker. Folks, this may be the worst lawyer in human history. You see, this person right over here, if you are ever in legal trouble and your option is between Tamara Walker and a public attorney, you go with the public attorney 10 out of 10 times. I mean, it just gets more and more ridiculous. Jussie Smollett's defense team argues that one of his assailants can't be trusted because he was a former lover. So which one is it? Did they have anti-rainbow people animus? Or are they rainbow people themselves who are in a relationship with Jussie Smollett? Which one is it? And things now get even worse for Jussie Smollett, as we now have video from inside of a taxi cab corroborating the story of the Osundaro brothers traveling to a specific location in order to orchestrate the dry run, or the practice run, before they staged the actual event. Like I told you guys, this is shaping up to be one of the most ridiculous cases I have ever covered. Jussie Smollett's legal defense is all over the place. I mean, just take a look at this little synopsis from Fox News.
Empire TV set testified under oath that Smollett paid the brothers $3,500 to buy red hats, fake beat him, put a noose around his neck, and yell, "This is MAGA country." In cross-examination today, the defense asking Bola Osundario if he ever dated Jussie Smollett or had sexual tension with him. Osundario said he is a straight man, and he testified he did go to a male bathhouse with Smollett, but never dated him or had relations. The prosecution also tried to paint the brothers as homophobic, revealing in court text messages between the two in which they called a person they assumed to be gay fruity and a sicko. The Osundaro say they are not homophobic, and even both participated in a gay parade. And also a big reveal today, Smollett's defense presenting a possible motive, asking one of the Osundaro brothers if they carried out this staged attack to try to scare Jussie Smollett into paying them $5,000 a week, to be their personal security, and the Osundaros denied that notion.
So the Osundaro brothers are homophobic, but they're also in a relationship with him and went to a bathhouse with him. But actually, it wasn't a homophobic attack. What it really was this grand scheme to try to intimidate Jussie Smollett to then pay them thousands of dollars a week for protection. So they orchestrated a fake hate crime together, which Jussie Smollett was in on, made himself look like the victim, so they can then convince him that he needed security from fake hate crimes that he paid them to orchestrate and practice and dry run. Folks, you see this person right over here? Never hire this individual to be anywhere near, not even a small consultation for your legal defense. One of the dumbest things I've ever seen in my life. So desperate that the judge literally stood up, getting frustrated with her facial expressions, attitude, and calls for mistrial. And then claiming the judge lunged at her to try to call for another mistrial. I mean, God, just stupid. Jussie Smollett is screwed. That's what I got for you guys, though. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share it as much as possible. We are still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm. I gotta get back to work, though. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.